Here's everything you need to know about crossing the US-Mexico border as a US citizen. And here are timestamps if you want to skip to a certain point. The good news is it's not too difficult to cross the border. The bad news is it differs depending on whether you're crossing by plane, by bus, by car. So let's talk about all of them. So entering Mexico by a plane is pretty straightforward. You only need two things. You need your US passport, which needs to be valid 6 months beyond your departure date. No, beyond your last day in Mexico. So if you're planning to spend 6 months in Mexico, your passport needs to be valid for 1 year. Mexico gives you 6 months as a US citizen to visit. And if you want to stay longer than 6 months, you just need to do a quick border crossing. The second thing that you're going to need is called an FMM form, or Mexico's immigration form. If you want to look this up online, it's called a tourist card. So just Google Mexico tourist card and a website will pop up and you can fill it out and print it out beforehand, which I recommend because it'll save you a little bit of time at the airport. However, if you don't print it out beforehand, they will supply it at the airport. It's going to ask you things like how long you're going to stay, the address of the place you're going to stay, so you need to get that ahead of time, whether you're staying at a hotel, an Airbnb, with a friend, so that you can write down their address. And then when you go through immigration, they're going to ask you for your passport and your tourist card, and they're going to stamp it and give it back to you. Now, here's an important detail. You need to hold on to this form the entire time you're in Mexico. So fold it, put it back with your passport, don't lose it because they're going to ask for it when you leave. So don't lose this form or else you're going to end up paying a fee. Now, the best part about entering Mexico by plane is that they have organized some sort of deal with the airlines to cover the cost of this immigration form, meaning it's not going to cost you anything. You just get to go inside. They incorporate it in your flight cost or something. This is not true of the next method of crossing, which we're going to talk about. So to summarize entering Mexico by plane, you need a passport and an FMM tourist card. Your passport needs to be valid for 6 months beyond your travel time. There are no fees associated with your tourist card, but you do need to keep your tourist card on you the entire time you're in Mexico. Don't lose your tourist card. So method number 2 is crossing the border by bus. And this looks a little bit different than it does by entering via a plane. And I could not find any information online to help me with this, so I was stressing as the date of my departure was approaching. So I'm here to give you the scoop of exactly what it looks like when you're crossing the border by bus if you, for some reason, decide to be adventurous and take a Greyhound across the border like I did. So it's going to be the same in the sense that you need a passport that's valid for more than 6 months and you need an FMM form. However, they're going to charge you for it at the border. So if you are using Greyhound to get into Mexico, they're not going to be any help whatsoever. Talk to the staff members, ask what the crossing looks like. They're not going to tell you anything. So you just get on a bus and they're not going to have any announcements in English. They're all going to be in Spanish. And if you're still working on your Spanish like I am, it's going to be difficult for you to stay in the know for what's happening. So this is what happened in my experience so that you can know beforehand. My bus was departing San Antonio, Texas, and we crossed the border at maybe 2 or 2:30 in the morning. When we reached the border crossing, the bus pulled in and they stopped. And then the bus driver made this announcement that I couldn't understand because my Spanish isn't that good yet. And most people on the bus stood up and got off. I was like, do I need to follow them? Is this just for citizens? I looked like the only gringo on the bus. So I didn't know what to do. So I kind of looked at people and tried to gauge and see if they could encourage me one way or the other. That was no help. Most people had already gotten off the bus at that point. So I went up to the bus driver and in my broken Spanish, I asked him, what do I do? He said something about bags, and I realized all of the bags are being taken out from underneath the bus. So I followed everyone else and got off the bus with all of our bags. So just through observation, I noticed that people were finding their bags, giving them back to the attendant, and telling them where their final destination was. So I went and I found my bag, and when I handed it back to the man, I told him Monterrey, that's where I'm going. And so he took it and he put it in a certain category. So I guess they were just organizing our luggage to simplify things. I don't really know. At that point, you get back on the bus. So when they pull around to the other side of the building, an immigration worker is going to come on the bus and it's going to inspect everyone's ID and collect it. So I guess if you have your own citizen's ID in Mexico, they're gonna take that. If you have a passport, take it, whatever. So for me, I handed over my passport at that point. And then you wait and someone comes back on and they ask for all of the citizens. And so then if you're like a citizen and you have whatever, you go and you continue to wait. Then they come back on. They will announce your name when they're ready for you. With me, they called me by my middle name, so I didn't respond at first. And then I was like, oh yeah, that's me. So I went inside. I waited in line for a few minutes. And then when the immigration worker was ready, he asked me what I was there for, if I was going to cross by plane or bus on my way back, how long I was staying, basic questions like that. And he took my passport and he filled out my form for me, so I didn't even fill out the form. Then he asked for payment. And this is what I was worried about because I couldn't find this information online because it was like super conflicting. But if you are crossing by bus, you do have to pay for your tourist card. So it's not like with the airlines where they pay it for you, you are in charge of it. So I think it costs like 720 pesos, maybe like $40 to $45. Which is not terrible, but it's also not free. Once they fill out your card and they process your payment, they're going to give it back to you with a receipt. Keep that tourist card. I keep mine with my passport. This is what it looks like. Don't lose it. Once everybody is in the clear, you get in line to go through security. So you go back to the bus, you pick up all of your bags, your checked bag, your carry-on, everything you have, and you're gonna bring it with you through security. And I'm pretty sure it's the same rules as airports. Basically, don't bring like open food or like vegetables, fresh things like that. But if you have like a sealed bag of chips or crackers or candy or something, it's gonna be fine. When everyone is done going through security, you go out the other side of the building where you originally were and you wait there with your luggage. The bus comes back, everyone puts their luggage back underneath, you get back on the bus and wait to leave. Now at that point I thought it was over, but it wasn't. About like 20 or 30 minutes later, we went through another crossing where a immigration worker comes back on and he checks everyone's card, everyone's pass or whatever. So you're gonna need to have your passport and your tourist card with you again. There was also an announcement by the bus driver that I couldn't completely understand, but I'm pretty sure what he said is there are people who will be looking for tips. They'll be looking for money as we cross. So they wanted to just get everyone's collective donation of a few pesos to just willingly give them a tip so that they don't, rob anyone, I guess. Like it was like kind of like appeasing the system. I don't really know. I'm not completely sure on that one, but I didn't have any pesos on me, so I didn't give, but several other people did. The third way of crossing by car is the only way that I haven't crossed the border, and I'm pretty sure it's the simplest. I think you just show them your passport and they let you through. In fact, I think some people have gotten through without a passport, but you're supposed to have your passport. Anyways, I hope that some of this information was helpful for you if you are planning a trip to Mexico soon. Stay safe, and as always, happy traveling.